All right.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Reclaiming Timeless Ways. Mike Traster, Simon Fuller, glad to have you along with us. Mike, as we jump into yet another edition of the show, some things and in many cases, some of our concepts circle back through.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the things today that's going to happen, but some things are just worth talking about and talking about and talking about again. They're just so applicable to life.
Absolutely.
One topic that I really love that you've, like I say, brought up in the show before is something versus nothing. And that seems so obvious in some respects,
Right.
but yet because of the overwhelming, daunting task of whatever that goal is, sometimes we just say nothing too easily.
Right.
And how could something get us there in a process? And I know you've just got oodles of examples and scenarios and life situations and really are encouraging of take that step.
Yeah.
One step.
Right.
Then it becomes 2. Then 4.
It does.
Once you've gotten 4 down, 8 doesn't seem that hard.
No.
Then 16's pretty simple. I mean, really, that's kind of the concept.
Did I tell you the story about the old man who was dying?
You may have.
Okay.
Remind me.
I met him in the Philadelphia Athletic Club many years ago.
Sure.
And when I stepped into the gym out of the street, here's this old fella, and he's very slowly trotting around this, I think it was an 1/8 mile wooden track.
Okay.
And so I went in, I've got my shorts on, and come back out, and he's still trotting. So I do my weights, and 2 or 3 sets at that time, and then I went back in, got in the pool, and went swimming. Come out, he's still trotting. So I got back in the locker room, put on my clothes, and left, and he's still going. So I said hi to him one day. He was about 78. And he looked every bit of it, maybe a little more. And he was trotting very slowly.
Sure.
It was like a moderate walk, but he was trotting. And I asked him, I said, boy, you just keep going, don't you? And he goes, yeah, 4 miles every day.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was impressed. And I said, how long have you been doing that? And he goes, oh, several years. I said, what got you started? He said, I was having severe chest pains. So he went to the doc, and the doc said, you're dying, and we can't help you. You can't have surgery, and can't. The whole long encyclopedia of can'ts, won'ts. And, go home, don't stress yourself. If you're lucky, you'll get 6 months, maybe a year, but don't bet on it. So the guy thought, I don't like all these can'ts.
Right.
I have nothing to lose.
Exactly.
I have nothing to lose, right?
He's already been pegged with 6 months, so.
Yeah, he's got the Damoclean sword hanging over his head.
Right.
By a very thin hair. And it could be in a minute.
Right.
Could be a year, could be 6 months, could be boom, done. So he decided what he was going to do is he would go out and he would walk to the corner. And when his chest started hurting, he'd stop. And he'd sit down if he had to. And he'd turn around and he'd slowly walk back. And he decided every day he'd walk a couple more steps.
Yeah.
So after a year or two, he was shuffling along at 4 miles a day.
Wow.
I think 5-6 days a week. And his heart had replumbed itself to some degree. It created what's called collateral circulation. Now, I'm not a cardiologist, and I'm not saying don't go to the doctor, so don't read more into this than what I'm saying. But this guy was hopeless,
Right.
and he made more life. I'll bet you he went another 5 or 10 or 15 years.
Yeah.
He might have hit 90 or beyond instead of 70 and
Yeah.
So little bits, right? And that's something we keep talking about. So, well, what you were saying, my title, something versus nothing. So exercise.
Yeah.
You mentioned getting a milk jug with the, plastic jug with the little handle.
Yeah.
And slowly filling it with sand and using that, right? Or I'll take my, I don't know how much this weighs. What would you say?
That's heavy enough. That's all of probably 40 pounds or better.
So what I do with this is I put my hand in a vertical position, and when I'm walking into the store, I hammer curl it 100 to 150 times with each hand.
Right.
So that muscle there, the extensor muscle, gets stronger and stronger, And so that's one of my ways.
It's just, and Mike, what I like about a lot of what you suggest, and off the camera, you suggested to me before, like in your office, Simon, and I won't do it, can you do push-ups on your desk?
Right.
Just partial push-ups when you're getting started. Sometimes the task is daunting because of time. I think a lot of times people say, I don't have time. Well, you said to me, Simon, you got a desk right here. You can do it right against that. Well,
And this is an extremely solid desk.
Right.
This isn't, you're what, 200?
a little better.
Okay.
We're fluffing up. But
I'm heavier than you, and I could do push-ups on this and it wouldn't move.
Yeah.
This is very solid.
so time, that you've kind of taken that away from me, and,
Right.
and you sometimes need somebody to take that away from you because
Yeah.
it's really what you
Absolutely.
it's what you make of it. And the second thing is I've got to get started. And so let's say I haven't done anything in a long time. You were showing me this is a simple way, Simon, to not overly stress yourself because I didn't have the full weight of my life
Right.
on the bottom. And so there are just simple things around your office, around your home
Right.
that you can get started and do something.
Yeah.
And eventually, you'll, just like that old man, you'll get to 4 miles, figuratively speaking.
Yeah, you'll get your 4 miles, whatever that happens
Whatever that
to
is,
be for
right,
you.
right.
Could be a half a mile.
Sure.
But if it's a
Or it could be
sweet-
20 push-ups. It could be
Yeah.
anything.
Now, with me, I'm now down about 4 or 5 inches below the level of the desk. I do it with my hands on the stairs, and I'm doing 100. Last time I did 170.
Yeah.
And so I just add a little bit,
Right.
and then every now and then I screw off for an extra day or two, and then
Sure.
I come back and
Right.
see where I'm at.
Right.
So exercise, reading. If you read a page 4 times a day, that's about 1,500 pages in a year, right?
Yeah.
And if you find books that are amusing, enlightening, inspiring,
Yeah.
or that help you find a beautiful escape, right? Whatever it happens to be for you, you're enriching your life.
Right.
And like we talked about the twins,
Right.
right? The guy that does 1 push-up is stronger than the guy that does none.
Right. The guy that reads a page is going to get to the end before the guy that doesn't, and he's going to gain some knowledge.
Right.
I finally, Mike, you'll be happy to know, and I've not been much of a reader in life, I can admit that. I was through school, but not in adult life, outside of my regular world of business. I mean, maybe publications there, but haven't done anything outside of that realm.
Right.
But I'm trying to commit a chapter a night. The last few nights I've been able to do that. And it's not a ton.
No.
It takes me 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
Okay, so you're
But
reading
that's
at a
something.
reasonable pace.
It's something but I was doing nothing, so some might say I can sit down and read for an hour. That's just not me yet. And so I'm enjoying this book, and you hit on something that I would really emphasize, and that is make sure it's something you want to do, you enjoy, especially in the
Right.
beginning, to pull you
Oh, yeah.
in. It's got to be something you look forward to as well.
It's not to compensate for somebody's criticism
Right.
of you.
It's for
You're
something you wanna
inadequate because, and there's all this pointing at and down.
And so now you're going to read something to get better at that topic. No, do
No.
something you want to do for you.
Because that's a reflection of your inner nature.
Right.
Right? So a nap.
Yeah.
Maybe 3 minutes or 5 or 7 minutes a day in the middle of the day might restore you. Apparently, one of the things that they do in Mexico that helps I think it's their heart health. Some of it is their food, like some of the seasoning, but also napping seems to help them. Drawing. There was a book written by an artist from France, and his name was Nicolaides, Nicholas, and he wrote a book called The Natural Way to Draw. Cool book. So if you sit down and you draw for a minute, or 2 or 3 or 5, and sometimes you'll get lost, and you might see one of the things that happens when you're doing what you like is time goes away.
Sure.
You get into a place, this is kind of a metaphysical statement, but it's how we're built.
Yeah.
Okay? You slip into a state of what I call timelessness or effortlessness.
Right.
And I remember watching, it was the master of the Kung Fu school in North Station, Boston, many, many years ago, and he was doing forms with butterfly swords, which are these big, flashy-looking swords. And he was probably 50 or more at the time, if I recall properly. And he said that somewhere in his study and practice, he stumbled into this state he called effortlessness.
Sure.
And it was like, oh. And I remember experiencing some of that as a runner.
Yeah.
You know, a bad runner, but occasionally I would have an incredible day.
Yeah.
You know, and it was like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
So, you know, each of these things, painting, writing, carry a 3x5 card in your shirt pocket or your pants pocket and write down something that left an impression on you.
Sure.
You know, and it could be anything. It could be a teller in the store looking somebody in the eye and quietly giving them some sort of uplifting presence and whatever, or holding a door for somebody, something that they do that changes that person's state for a moment, right? And like what I was talking about, so Tai Chi, 4 moves a week. Everybody goes, 4 moves a week, we'll never get anywhere. Well, it's, what is it? It's 4 and a third weeks in a month. So you'd be doing like 17 moves a month. Or it would be almost 200 movements in a year, which is, well, it would be two short forms, you know, which is 2/3 of a grand form, which is a lot. Paint the house. If you paint something the size of your front door every day and you have a small house, by the end of the summer,
It'll be painted.
3 coats.
Right.
You know, and it's like, nah, that's not true. Do the math.
It's funny because you made me think of something, and as we record this show and we're talking about this topic, doing something, it reminded me, it's towards the beginning of the year as this show is being recorded. Not sure when you're viewing it, but it's towards the beginning of the year. And what's synonymous with the beginning of the year? New Year's resolutions, right?
Right.
And so it was interesting because I had read a fact, and that's what I was pulling up on my phone here. It talks about, and there's probably different numbers. This is just one. It's probably going to be pretty similar if you look it up. Why New Year's resolutions fail, what percentage fail, and you look at that, and it's, you know, most people blame their failure on a lack of time, resources, or motivation. So when we talk about time, you find ways to do something. As you're saying, don't do it all at once. You might discourage yourself if you try to say, I'm going to read a book and I got to knock this out in a weekend, or if I want to do a 5K, don't start by running a 5K your first day trying to practice it. You'll burn yourself out before you even get to enjoy it. Resources or motivation, and all those kind of tie in. 16% of people are able to follow their resolutions according to research, and again, they then repeat these. And so I'm not saying that we're advocating for New Year's resolutions, Mike, but when you're talking about that index card in your pocket and write down something, I'm thinking, okay, isn't that along the same lines of something I want to accomplish, something for me, whatever that might be. And maybe it is eating more healthfully, better choices, or reading, or like you said, exercise relating to running or in the gym.
Right.
Doing something, Mike, is gonna, don't end up that 16% that I pulled up here. And most of those failures come from overdoing it in some way, shape, or form.
So if you did a third as much and you never burned out, maybe your percentage of success would go up 3 or 4 times.
I would think so. I mean, I think that's a very conservative guess. I mean, that is what, I can't do that anymore. My legs are sore. I tried to run a 5K. I went out and ran a couple miles. That killed me. I ain't doing that anymore.
So you got these horrendous blisters on your feet.
Right.
So I don't like New Year's resolutions.
I know. It was not the perfect terminology, but that concept.
It's great because it brings the subject into more focus.
Right.
And the reason why is because they're a performance.
Right.
And when you make a performance proclamation, you've already wasted a large amount of your energy, and you've put yourself on the spot, which stresses you.
Sure.
Whereas if you make a quiet, serious statement to yourself.
Right.
I'm going to do 1 push-up every 3rd day for the next 6 weeks.
Right.
And then I'm going to do 2.
Right.
and that'll be for 4 more weeks. And then after another 2 weeks, I'll do 3. And if somebody says 3, I say no, 0.
Right.
Wow, big difference. So maybe in 6 months that person is doing 10, but they didn't do 50 and then quit.
Right.
Right? So who's better off?
Exactly, and you are right. It seems like all too often a New Year's resolution is proclaimed to the world. What are you doing that for? It's for you.
Right. It's almost like watching somebody that's manic, right? They're manic from mania or from 12 cups of coffee,
Sure.
or because they're stressed out, because there's somebody sitting over there that's a harsh judge, or sitting in here that's a harsh judge, right? And so they're trying to fend that person off, and the way they do it is they, figuratively speaking, get on the chair with a megaphone and they make this huge announcement. 2/3 of their energy is already gone.
Yeah.
And they're doing it defensively. They're not doing it constructively.
Right.
So if you start off defensively,
Yeah.
you're out of focus.
Yeah, well, where's your motivation?
Right.
That's not a very good form of motivation for the long term. Maybe for a sprint, not for a marathon, and most things are a marathon,
Right.
you know?
What, most sprints what?
I said that's maybe good motivation for a sprint, but not for a marathon, and most things in life are a marathon, not a sprint.
That's very true.
You know.
That's very true. So, get a bunch of old bricks and make a stone path,
Yeah.
right? Let's say you take your shovel and you dig 4 inches down and you dig a square foot and you put 3 or 4 bricks in it, and then you just fill it back in and sweep the extra dirt off. And if you do that 10 times in the summer, you've made a half a path.
Right.
But if somebody says, that's only a half a path, and somebody else says, that's a half a path,
Right.
right?
It's better than no path.
Right. And it's like,
It's halfway there.
And next spring, or maybe into the fall, you might do 2 or 3 more. Maybe you'll only have that much further to go. So in the spring, when the ground thaws, you'll come out maybe twice a week and do 2. And in a week and a half, it'll be done, and you'll say, I almost don't remember when that wasn't there.
Right.
It feels like it was always there, but it wasn't. You made it.
Right.
You know, you've enhanced your environment and
Right.
yourself. You know,
You've accomplished something more than anything, Mike. I mean, and that
Yeah.
there's a feeling that everybody gets when you've reached that accomplishment.
right? Oh, absolutely. You're more complete.
Yeah. Don't sabotage yourself
Right.
by overcommitting.
Right.
You're saying here is the path. You weren't even meaning it figuratively to finish those paths.
Right. Trimming shrubs. I've got this huge shrub around half my property.
Sure.
And it's lilacs.
Yeah.
It's like 150 feet of them that I planted one at a time from little skinny volunteers. Well, now they're 7 feet tall and 4 feet thick, and they're a pain in the butt to trim. So I do 10, 15, 20 feet at a time.
Sure.
And is it perfectly flat? No.
Right.
But is it trimmed?
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Does it look incredibly better, even though it's not perfect, after I trim it? Incredibly better.
Yeah.
Perfect? No.
Right.
Do I have a couple of neighbors who need to constantly be at the proctologist because of how anal they are about perfect? Yes. Do I care about what they think? Yeah, I do. They irritate the crap out of me, but I'm not going to please them.
Right.
You know?
And you're not doing it to please them.
I am not. I'm doing it because I need to do some maintenance on my shrubs. So cleaning and organizing. If all you did was clean from here to the wall, same idea. You say, oh, what about that? No. You did that. And then a day or two, you're going to do that. And let's say this is chaos, which it isn't.
That's the best part about recording this show, Mike, is it keeps me cleaning my office. Otherwise, it would be chaos, let me tell you.
I'm telling on myself, right? Getting rid of things. Or picking things up. If you walk through a room and every time you walk through the room, you just do that.
Right.
That's it. You know, well, there's 3 pieces of paper and you just pick them up and you do that. So they're neat.
Right.
Right? So it's not interfering visually with your
Right.
sense of calm. Right? Meditation, we'll talk about that later. We have no choice. But to always be in that state is very stressful
Sure
for
it
the
is.
body. The Japanese have a philosophy that they call the perfection of imperfection, right? And it's my interpretation. And the word that they use, 2 words, it's wabi-sabi. So like they might have let's say this cup cracked, it will be you have an infinite capacity to improve? I don't think so. But you may be able to improve a lot.
Yeah.
I think in some ways my Tai Chi is better now than it was 10 or 15 years ago, but in other ways it's not, because I'm not 50,
Sure.
right? So, that's about all on that one.
Yeah, but I mean, in summary, it really is.